Hello, my friends, and welcome to ChessBase Workshop. We were playing around. We were playing a Star Wars game last night, and I was trying to do the Emperor's voice, and it just doesn't work. It's really aggravating. Not as aggravating as trying to do Christopher Lee's voice. He's got the coolest voice, and you can't imitate him, and it just bothers me. I'm actually pretty good at impressions. Anyway, I am Steve Lopez, and this is my normal voice, and we're going to look at a book feature or two in ChessBase 11 today in ChessBase Workshop. We looked at defaults last week, setting up default databases and opening books. Now, there are different things you can do with opening books, by the way, different ways to display things in the book. So, just for chuckles, go back to the same game that we were in last time around, where we were looking at this position. You'll remember I clicked on the opening book tab and got all kinds of information here. Your opening book may not look like this, by the way. When you default and go into it, it probably looks something like this, or even like this. Just so you know what's in the opening book, what this is. Okay, we're looking at a position after white has played Queen D2. We're looking at black responses based on the games that are in the Power Book database. So there were 690 games in the database in which the position appears. Even though these numbers add up to more, there's transpositional possibilities here. Openings transpose like crazy, which is why you'll frequently see all these numbers add up to more than the number of games. Okay, the queen move is played in this number of games. However, 619 games, black castles. In 559 games, black plays the pawn to a6. That obviously adds up to more than 690 games. It's because of transpositional possibilities, reaching the same position by different move orders. What you have here is a percentage. Now, the default for this percentage is to always show the percentage from white's viewpoint, meaning that higher numbers are always better for white, lower numbers are always better for black. Higher percentage is good for white, lower percentage is good for black. This can be changed. I will show you this in a moment. But keep that in mind. That was the way these trees worked forever. Those of you who go back far enough to the old DOS days, back in the early 90s, might remember a program called CB Tree. And that was how CB Tree worked. It always gave you percentages from white's standpoint. You can change this now. We'll show you that in a moment. Another thing you can see in the openings book, go to properties, by the way. Excuse me, right click anywhere in this big open white area. Don't right click on a move. You right click on a move, you get a different bunch of options. You don't want that. You want to come down here to this big white area where there's nothing and right click on the nothing and go to properties from the pop-up menu. Right there you see I have it highlighted very dimly in blue. If you check Show ELO Numbers and click OK, what you'll get are some ELO statistics. It's ELO, not ELO. We're not doing that again. The average rating of the players who played a particular move based on their ELO is here. Basically, it takes all their ratings, averages them together. So the average rating of the players who played 8 castles, 2457. The average rating of the players who played 8 a6, 2424. Performance rating. I'm going to try to explain this to you, but I know what it does, but what it is, but I'm really bad at explaining it. Here's the deal. There are 619 games in which castling was played. Okay? If you took all 619 of those games and average out, you take that average rating, 2400 or 2457 rather, assuming that 619 games were played by a player rated 2457, based on those results of wins, losses, and draws, he would have a performance rating. His rating would go down to 2385. Basically, if the performance rating is lower than the average rating, move not good. If the performance rating is higher than the average rating, move good. That's really the deal, honestly. It's a mathematical thing, but it'd be like if you took 619 games played by a player rated 2457 with the identical results of win, losses, and draws as we see here of these 619 games, the player's performance rating would have dropped to 2385, meaning he would lose more games than he won. That's all it is, really. I don't find this to be a terribly useful guidepost. I don't really care about the ELO ratings of players who played a move, and I'll tell you why. If I'm looking at a move that the average rating of a player who played it is 26 something, you know, on the surface you might think, dang, that is a really good move, right? Pardon me, I had a sip of coffee. But it may be a move that you got to be 2600 rated or higher to understand why that move was made. You know, so I'm not really interested in playing and aping what masters and grandmasters play just because they got great ratings. I'm more interested in trying to figure out why a move was played. And as we saw in the last video, I was musing over this particular position, and I looked at the top two moves for black, which are castles and a6, and I'm trying to find a commonality. What is the point of these two moves? Castling, of course, gets your king out of the center, but what's the big deal with a6? Well, the only reason to play a6 is to keep the white bishop off of b5. You know, black doesn't like the pin. If this bishop comes here, hey, you know what? I think I can draw some arrows. That bishop comes here, there will be a pin on this knight. So black doesn't want that. There's two ways to get out of it. One is if you castle, you've eliminated the problem. There's not going to be a pin if the bishop comes to b5. And if you play a6, the bishop can't come to b5, so you've got two ways to eliminate the same problem. So what that tells me is that in this position, black needs to worry about that bishop. See, that's what you use an opening book for. This is why you do these things here, okay? That's one of the tweaks I wanted to show you in the opening book. Let me get rid of the distracting. Yeah, that was good. Let's try that. Yeah, that's what we want. There you go, baby. Get rid of the distracting colors, and we'll move on to another thing I want to show you, which is what we talked about a moment ago. The numbers are given from white's perspective, meaning that high numbers are good for white, while low numbers are good for black. Okay? But what you might want is to see the percentages always from the standpoint of the moving side. Like, here we go. We'll go back a move. Queen d2, good for white, but this move seems to be very good for black, 37%. Then you come here and you look at a black move and you go, all right, now I got to reverse my thinking. I want to see low numbers, not high numbers. And some people just have a tough time making that switch from move to move. So one of the things you can do is go to Properties and uncheck Result from White Side. Click OK, and the numbers change. Notice here, now this isn't going to change. The numbers on white moves won't change. But when you look at black moves, the numbers will change. And what it is now is you're looking at the success rate, success percentages from black's viewpoint. And nothing here looks especially good. I mean, it's not hopeless, you know, but it's not a happy place to be if you're black. So you can switch them back and forth. Let me show you again. If you go to Properties, watch the numbers in a percent column change when I click Result from White Side and click OK. Here it is, the number from white's perspective. The numbers are all higher than 50. One of them is higher than 60. So white's doing pretty okay at this point. And if you take Properties, uncheck Result from White Side, now you're going to see the percentages from black's viewpoint. And there's nothing here to write home about if you're black. So you can switch that back and forth. I've been doing this for so long that I'm so used to seeing the numbers from white side that I leave the default alone. But you can check or uncheck that. It's your option. The other thing I want to show you, one last thing that you can do in the opening book pane. Well, there's more than just one last thing, but one last thing I'll show you today. Right-click, go to Properties, and select Statistics. You saw this earlier when I started. Back at the start of this video, I had this displayed down here at the bottom, and this gives you additional statistics on particular moves in the opening tree. In a lot of ways, this is a whole lot more useful than an average percentage. And I'll tell you why. I was looking at a game the other day, and I wish I could remember what it was so I could show it to you. But it had a percentage rating somewhere around 50. It was in the average area. But there were a huge number of white wins and black wins. That's what this display shows you. White wins, draws, and black wins. There were big green and red bars, a little bitty gray bar indicating draws, meaning that even though white and black tend to split fairly well statistically, you also find out that most of the games ended in a decisive result. I mean, a huge number ended with somebody winning and somebody losing. And that's a position that bears examination. You need to look at that. Why does somebody, why is this position so dynamic? What's going on in this position that it tends to end up in games with a definite decision? You need to look at that. That's a definite guidepost. Whereas if you're looking at a percentage that says 51% or 52%, and there's this real long gray bar and not a lot of green and not a lot of red, it's not a real dynamic position. You know, it tends to be very drawish, as we say, and you may not have to worry too much about that kind of a position. That's why this is really important down here. That's why it's really good to show this. What we're seeing here is the green bar is white wins, as you see here, this 1-0. Gray, draws, red, black wins. You get exact numbers for each. 250 white wins, 218 draws, 151 black wins. The percentage of each. White wins 40% of the time, black only wins 24% of the time in this position. And then some other numbers over here dealing with ratings. It's that simple. Really, really useful tool. Because again, if you're seeing a lot of green, a lot of red, not a lot of gray, even if the number up here says, you might look at this and say, oh, 58%, that position is kind of drawish. It's a little lower would be 50%. White does a little better. Okay, but if you come down here and you see big long green and red bars, you know that it's really not drawish at all. Somebody is probably going to pull out a win, and you need to try to figure out why that would be so. So this is a really, really cool, useful tool down here. I encourage you to use it. Again, to get to it, right-click anywhere in the big white area, not on a move. Again, you get a whole different set of options if you click on a move, right-click on a move. Instead, we will right-click on a big empty area, go to Properties, and to turn Statistics on and off down here, you've got a button for that, little checkbox. Show ELO numbers, these two columns here, you can turn that on and off, and you can change the way the results are displayed. If result from white side is checked, it means that big numbers in the percent column are good for white, small numbers mean that move's good for black. If you uncheck it, these results are always from the moving side, so all you need to remember there is big numbers are good, low numbers are bad. That simple. That's it for ChessBase Workshop. I'm Steve Lopez. Till next time we get together, please do have fun.